Welcome to SmallTalk by Sfarim Chatter. I'm Nachi Weinstein. On this episode of SmallTalk, I'm going to be joined by Rabbi Yehoshua Lifschitz, who is the editor and publisher of Sifrei Meir Panim, which we did a podcast previously. But this episode is going to be about the new edition of the Zohar, which is now complete in 6 volumes. Obviously, more work being done on Tikkunei Zohar, Zohar Chadash, etc., but the Zohar itself is now complete in 6 volumes. So thank you, Rabbi Yehoshua, for joining me once again.
Well, thank you for letting me have the time to talk to you and let everybody know what's going on.
So, what can you tell the listeners about your new edition of Zohar?
Well, there's a bunch of things. The Zohar, again, was written in Aramaic, and that's the language everybody spoke. And so, the fact that I'm translating it, my translation is a dummy translation. That means I don't explain anything. So if you read it and you get stuck on one word, you'll look at the translation. But the translation is not a pirush, which is what everyone else did. They used some freedom to explain it the way they wanted to explain it. But I wanted people to read the Aramaic inside, so I kept my explanations out of the article. That's number one. Number two was that the Zohar was printed about 80 times. The first time by tzaddikim, the second time by Christians and Jews who convert to Christianity, to get people to become Christians. And that's the gears that the Magen Avraham, the Shloh had. And then there's later on the Arizal changed girsos. But you have to know the girsa before the Ari and after the Ari, and which girsa is not worthwhile reading. And no one ever did a real systematic explanation of each girsa. Where is it from? I mean, the Sulam did a great number of girsos, but I kept it down to the original, the Arizal, and then Reb Chaim Vital's, the one version in Kushta, where Reb Chaim Vital, they said Reb Chaim Vital made additions. But I saw that every girsa we had was mixed up of all three, and you can't really only take this girsa because the Rashba or the Rein of Chai didn't have that girsa, and so you're not be able to read it. So I brought you down the parentheses is the original, the Montovo. The brackets are the Arizal's girsa, and then the straight lines is Kushta's Chaim Vital's girsa. So that's the Nusach, and that's the Targum. The third thing I did was Mefarshim. Now, there are 8 or 9 Mefarshim on the Zohar. I'm sure even though you had a good yeshiva education, you'd have trouble listing 2 of them or 3 of them, right? Now, I'm not saying that any other Mefarish is bad, but if you have a Beis Yosef and the Rebbe of the Beis Yosef, or you have a Avrech from nowadays, or a Shiva from nowadays, or a Shiva from 30 years ago, you'd rather use the Beis Yosef and the Rebbe of Beis Yosef. And so that's the difference. Mefarshim I start with is the Ramak, the Arizal, the Gra, the Mikdash Melech, the Ramaz. The Ramaz is a Talmud, I think, of Reb Chaim Vital, or a Talmud of the Talmud, and the Mikdash Melech is a Talmud of the Ramaz, or 2 Talmudim afterwards. But the main Mefarshim, Piari, is the Mikdash Melech. That's what the Leshem used. That's what a lot of people used. But it doesn't exist. And if it exists, it's very hard to use. It's not it's on the Tzurus Daf. And I bring it down on the Daf. And I found a Ksaviad of Chaim Vital's Agos on Breishis. So that's 900 Agos, which I added. And, so I started with the Mikdash Melech, the Ramaz, the Ramak. The Ramak is absolutely the first Shatanstein I've ever seen in my life. He did a great job of making it readable for any person. So you can read Hebrew, you can read the Zohar with the Ramak's Pirush, but again, Ramak's Pirush is not printed, and also it's not Gefi Seder Adapim. And so if you look on my website, under the Zohar, you'll see you can get the whole. I did a spreadsheet to explain to you exactly the Ramak, where it is in each daf of the Zohar, and so that's very important, and that's for free. Actually, everything on my website's for free, along with all my Zohar, but that's a side point. But so that's more or less what I did. Now, every daf, you'll see different Mefarshim, and usually at the end of the Omud, you might not see too many Mefarshim because I finished the amount of space I had with the Mefarshim at the beginning of the Omud. Now, I was makbid to keep it on the Tzurus Daf, so even though whatever is in Zohar is like 1 Omud, is by me is 2 Omudim, so if you open my Sefer, so the 2 pages that are open to you is 1 Omud. And if you look for, Kuf Yud Daled and Beis, the Beis Yosef brings down, or the Nefesh Chaim brings down, or some Sefer Chassidus Sefer brings down, you'll find that in a second you want to look through If it's Rai Mehemna, Sisrei Oisius, I don't know what, Medrash and Elam. And so like in the beginning of Lech Lecha, it has 3 different texts on the same page. So all those 3 texts are on my first page. You can find them right away, and it should be really easy and useful, and should be very geschmack. And Baruch Hashem, I've been getting a great deal of feedback from it. A lot of people are using it and steiging from it, and it's a pleasure. I mean, I will tell you that one of my sons, who's a Baruch Hashem, got a personality. He said, "Dad, I got to tell you, you're really not doing anything to Sefer. I see you. You're just doing Control C, Control V. You're just doing copy and paste. You're not really doing anything." Which is true, because, if there's a peers of the Beis Yosef on something, that's much better than me explaining anything. So I just zap it in. Again, when there is no Afarshim, so then I do have some fun. And I'll ask you a question. You probably won't know it, but what's the one page of Zohar that everybody says many times a week? Brich Shmei, right? Right. And there's not one word of Pirush on it. Nobody. And the Ramak says it's not the Zohar. Okay, fine. But Lamaisa, we say it, and there's not one word of Mefarshim. So that Almud I had to do a lot of work on. But every other Almud I did. And Bez Hashem, it came out very nice, very useful. And I was learning with a donor a while back, and he asked a question on the Nusach of the Zohar. And I said, I don't know, let's look at the Mefarshim. And then I saw every one of the Mefarshim explain that diuk, but in 3 different ways, because there are 3 different Mefarshim. And it was like very, very fun, because that's what Limud Torah is, that, you learn something, learn Rashi and Tosfos at the beginning of Baba Kama 10 times in your life, but each time, hopefully, it should be a different Amkus. That's what this is. This is not hating people, or even if it's some Hasidic Rebbe from 100 years ago. No, we're talking about Gadol, from hundreds of years ago, from the door of the Beis Yosef, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, so your son is obviously funny because, of course, you say you copy paste, but it's much more than that. Besides, you added your own little commentary. Obviously, you chose what to include in the commentary on the bottom. So that's the Meir HaZoyar. As you said, when you open the book, you open the larger size, you open the, actually regular size paper, but you open it, you have the Surah Sadaf, and you have it on each page. So literally on the upper corner, it tells you, you stuck to the Surah Sadaf, which is nice, but the double page spread is one page. So it's 2 pages for 1 page, the original Zohar. You have your Targum, as you mentioned, you kept to the kind of tried to keep to a strict, simple translation, not adding any commentary as opposed to some of the others.
I got a lot of thank yous from that, you should know. A lot of, Gedolim thanked me for not putting my nose into the Targum.
Also, one other thing to follow up, you mentioned your website, which I'll link in the show notes, sifreimeirpanim.com. On your website, you said everything's free, so someone could just download any sefer for free as a PDF?
Yes. Actually, another person, another Irgun, who wanted to do a Zohar, and I told them, actually I went into Oiz V'Hodar, and I told them, you guys are having some trouble with the Zohar, right? They said, yeah, it's not so easy. I said, well, here's my website. Take everything you want for free. Don't mention my name. Don't have to give me anything. Just enjoy it. And they said, you're an idiot. I said, oh, well, yeah, probably, but I assume I'm going to get to Olam Haba one day, I hope, and I'm going to meet Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and I'm afraid that he's going to ask me, did you do it for money or L'Shem Shamayim? And I want to say, L'Shem Shamayim, and here's a proof. But yeah, everyone can get all my stuff, every one of my Sfarim, even the ones I'm working on. I just uploaded Tikkun Ayin of the Tikkun Zohar yesterday, and they should use it, and they should grow from it, Bez Hashem. Someone even came to me a couple of years ago and said, I use your website every day to learn with my Chabrusa, and I want to pay you for it. And I said, don't worry about it. You say you don't want anything? I said, listen, if you want to give a donation, give. If not, it's okay. I'm happy people are using this for it. Right. And another person wanted to ask for my text, the whole Zohar and the Targum, because what they did didn't come out so good. And I said, listen, I worked on it for years. If you count how much it's going to cost you to do it, to pay someone, pay me 70%. And they said, okay. And then they didn't get back to me. And I assume they're just taking off the web for free. So good, wonderful, I'm happy.
But as you said, you do accept donations, and obviously when you print the Svarim, those printed books, someone wants to go to the Svarim store, it's available in the Svarim store, they have to pay for that, and you could order from the website as well. So that's a different thing. You're talking about just download the PDF, which is, again, it's a big schus that you just make Zikar Rabbim, that you just make it available for free, that anyone can just download. You have countless Svarim, and we did a podcast a few years ago, and you're still putting out many Svarim. You did the Leshem now, you have many Svarim, you have a Chumash, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things that you have. So yes. That's all available on your website, and I'll link to the website. Now, I'm just curious. I mean, you kind of, I guess, touched on this throughout your first comments, but why did you decide that a new Zohar was necessary? I mean, there's many different editions of Zohar available now.
Well, yeah, you have to remember that. I mean, if you look at the how you want to say it, like, I like to say it like this, and that is that if you do something like you want it to be done, right? Like if I, make a sandwich the way I want to make a sandwich, so I'll eat it. I don't know who else is going to eat it. But if I want to sell sandwiches and I only make the sandwiches the way I like them, they're only going to be sold to people who are like me. But let's say I do something that everybody wants. So now the Sulam was done for this reason and for this kind of crowd, and the Moshe Midrash was done for this kind of crowd, and the Mosad of Cook was done for this kind of crowd. I wanted to do something for it. If anybody was going to open the Zohar, what would they need? Well, they'd need paragraphs. They need psukim. They need gemaras quoted. They need the Targum. They need the Tur Sadaf, and they need the Gedolim Mefarshim. And you should know that's the common thread through every one of Lifshitz's Sfarim in the Sefer Meir Panim, is that if you look at Chumash Rashi, what does Chumash Rashi need in order to understand it? A, B, and C. What does the Tikkun Zohar need? A, B, and C. What does Feicha Mishpat need? A, B, and C. And so I like that. I always tell anyone who talks to me, and I say, listen, if you want to do a sefer right, how many extra footnotes are you allowed? And I always ask that question. They're always stuck. I don't know if you want to try to answer that one, but I mean, I assume you've seen all this farm in Klal Yisrael, a lot of farm in Klal Yisrael. How many extra footnotes are you allowed? And so people say, well, they have to be rove useful. And I said, well, my rule is one per sefer. You're allowed one extra footnote per sefer. And Baruch Hashem, I've got some really critical editors that, go over my stuff and make sure I don't have anything that's not absolutely needed. And they just erase. And it's wonderful. And Baruch Hashem, I allow myself one footnote per sefer extra. So if you ever find something extra in my sefer, don't be shy to email it to me and I'll see if I should erase it. And, I know an 80-year-old man who's been learning his whole life, and he's serious in his learning. And he said, I went through the whole Pischei Sharim, all 4,000 footnotes. I didn't have one extra one there. So good job.
Wow. Okay. Who would you say your edition of the Zohar is meant for?
Well, I'll tell you a cute story. A friend of mine who's a Talmud Chacham asked for one of my Sfarim that it wasn't ready yet, but it was, I could give it to him. And so I gave it to him. I said, what do you think? After 2 weeks, he says, I didn't like it. I said, tell me the truth. How were you sitting when you read it? He said, what do you mean? I said, were you sitting back with your legs crossed? Or are you sitting forward with your finger in the sefer and you're making lines in your forehead? He said, you're such a Mekubal, Yehoshua? I said, I'm right? You're sitting back, right? He said, yeah, I was sitting back. I said, try it again sitting forward. And so he sat forward. He came back 2 weeks later. He said, oh, it was Geschmack. I said, oh, that's it. So if someone wants to read Zohar, so that's not me. If someone wants to learn Zohar like a Gemara and treat it like Baba Kama, yeah. So I don't think anyone else does it for you because no one else brings you, the Nusach of the Mefarshim without adding something. And I give you 3 or 4 Mefarshim Keseder on many things. You could see like Rashi and Taisus. You could see the Gra and the Ramak, the Mikdash Melech and the Arizal, or the Leshem and the Rabbi Yehoshua. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. I'm enjoying it myself.
Yeah, it's a collection of serious Mefarshim, but it's not overdone, as you're saying, and it's not giving you too much. And the same with the Targum. What are you trying to accomplish with this?
I'm trying to get people to understand. When you learn, so there's 3 levels. First thing you have to do is to be able to read it, right? And that's what a Schottenstein does for people that can't read. And so my Targum is not exactly a Schottenstein, but once you can read something, then what everybody does in the next level, after you can read it, a Gemara, a Pasuk, a Zohar, a Arizal, whatever, once you can read it, then there's the Amkus that everybody gets to, that this means that means this, okay, and then there's the Chidushim. So the Chidushim I don't ever do because that's not worth printing. I'm not that big yet. But what everybody wants in Limud Zohar or Limud Ari or Limud Gra or Limud Rashi or Limud Feish Mishpat, that's what I do. Hopefully. That's the goal. And therefore everybody should be using it. Even if someone doesn't like me too much, which happens, they still use my Sfarim because I'm bringing them useful things. And so that's the goal.
What future projects are you working on?
Well, again, I just finished the Tikkun Zohar, and so I'm gonna make that ready to print. The Tikkun Zohar I've split into 5 volumes, and so 2 volumes are available in the stores. The 3rd volume should be going to print maybe today. The 4th volume is the typesetter. The 5th volume I'm working on. And that's going to take another couple of weeks, months, I don't know, however long it takes. And the Zohar Chodosh, now the Tikkun Zohar is really fun because the Gra really was Meirish there. And so we have a lot of different Torah there. The Tikkun Zohar Chodosh is the same thing, but the Zohar Chodosh is just about no Mefarshim. And if there are, they're very hard to find. So when I find them, it's fun. When I don't find them, it's even more fun because it's like Yerushalmi. There's no Rashi, there's no Tosfos, and you have to explain it, and you have to make sure it's clear. And, it's got real good Makuros that, even if someone who likes me that much to criticize me, so they're going to, I know people are going to look on me. I don't know if I told you this last time, but there's a chazal that when Yosef was about to do an Avera with Precious Potifera, he saw Yankov in front of him, and so he stopped. So I understand that, because that's how I feel every time I work on my Sfarim. I see all of my Rebbeim in front of me looking for mistakes. And so I could see their face. And so Baruch Hashem, Bez Hashem, I'm intrigued by the fact that no one's ever come to me, none of the Gedolim that are my Rebbeim have ever come to me with a big mistake yet. People have complained about things and said this and said that, but none of my Rebbeim ever came to me with a complaint yet, which is sort of strange, but Bez Hashem, they will.
I guess you're doing something right. Okay, so as you mentioned, there's the Zohar. We said the Chumash, the Eitz Chaim, the Leshem, Nefesh HaChaim, many more Sfarim. So I will link to your website in the show notes. That's sifreimeirpanim.com, Sifreimeirpanim.com. I'll link there.
It's easier. Just Google Yehoshua Lifschitz in English or in Hebrew. There's not too much competition for the search engine optimization, so I'm the first one up there. You'll see my face.
And on your website, there's a bunch, it's very easy. There's comments. You have donate now button. You can buy through the Israeli website. You can buy through an Israeli farm store, buy on the US website. Like you said, there's the free downloads. And so that's all available. Everything's available there. You can find everything available there on the website.
Oh, wait. One more thing I have to tell you. Mm-hmm. The last podcast we did, so it got to somebody who's now a friend of mine. I don't want to say his name, maybe unless he gives me reshus, but he gave me the money to finish the Zohar, and so we finished the Zohar, and that's a big part of that schus is yours. So I really appreciate it, and I got to tell you, you'll love this story. Is that it was all ready to print. We finished everything. And then I had to decide whether to raise money for the printing and make some money from all the work I did, or not make any money and just print it off a loan from the same guy who paid for all the editing we did until now. And so I didn't know what to do. So I asked one of my Rebbeim, going to Tzvi Cheshen from the Mir, and he goes to me like this. He says, Yeshua, b'schus limud Zohar, the Mashiach's going to come. So if you raise money and it takes you 6 months to print the Zohar, that means the Mashiach's going to come 6 months later. I'd rather Mashiach come a couple months earlier and you lose some money. And so when the donor heard that, he said, well, if he says that, I'm not going to ask you for the money so fast. And Baruch Hashem, we've sold a lot. Klal Yisrael's learning it. It's really making a difference. And Baruch Hashem, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to help Klal Yisrael learn. It's a pleasure to give to Klal Yisrael. And it's not, again, those people who should not be learning Zohar, I don't think they'll enjoy it. I don't think they'll use it. I don't think they'll open it.
Well, thank you for the story. I think it's always interesting to hear things like that when we do these podcasts and many people listen, and I'm like, well, people are listening, it's interesting, but when you hear like the real life impact, something like that, it happens, it's great to hear. So I'm happy to hear that, and thank you for joining me once again to talk about the Zohar.